Hi, I'm Vanessa Wishstar, intuitive medium, and today I'm going to share with you a very personal story of my near-death experience. So they usually abbreviate it as NDE, so near-death experience. And for me, my near-death experience was actually quite different than the majority of people who've had NDEs. And it's also very, very personal, so I don't normally share it with many people, but I decided I need to get it out because I think its message is important. And what I've gained from it has really sustained me through life. So how it started was I was working with somebody who was a transformational breath worker. And transformational breath, I forget, there's another name for it that's similar. But basically, you do a deep breathing exercise. And in that exercise, you're just breathing, I think, in and out your nose rather fast. But usually what it does is it kind of expands you past the body. So you're being able to go and access information basically beyond our conscious awareness. And some people use it through hypnosis and that kind of stuff. This was just transformational breath, so it releases a lot of things that you hold in your body, and it's amazing work. But I was really young when this happened. So I was, I think, around 15, 16, right around there. And basically my mom, back in the day, she did this group, and she kind of opened this women's center, and it was just a lot of spiritual, new age kind of frontier medicine, as I call it, of spiritual medicine. So the person who I was working with, my mom talked about it, and I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool. I was very interested in spiritual development at a very early age. Actually, I had two near-death experiences, which I'll share the other one, which happened to me when I think I was around 7. That happened a while ago, obviously. But this one, the 15, 16, this is where I had a really kind of amazing breakthrough of an adventure, I would call it. So I was 15, 16 years old, and I was doing, I think it was my first session of transformational breath. Maybe I did it prior, but I don't really remember. But it was just, like I said, a breathing exercise. You don't really expect anything to happen. But what happened for me is, what I remember is, while I was doing the breath work, which was extremely challenging for me, your body starts to kind of curl up, and I get very tight, and I almost kind of go into a, when people have disabilities, and I would think actually a lack of oxygen, your fingers start to crawl, and you almost go into a very fetal position. And that's what, started to happen. And I was guided through it, so it wasn't scary, it was a little scary, but it wasn't traumatic or anything like that. Then what happened was my NDE. And the other thing is before I go into that, I used to be able to, I still do, am able to go out of my body very easily. And this wasn't something I was actually proud of. This was something that I considered a negative. Most people like to, when they meditate, they like to transcend and go beyond the body. That, to me, happened too frequently and too easily, that was not comfortable for me. So of course, doing transformational breath, I was able to transcend really easily, which I didn't really think that was going to happen. So during the NDE, the thing is that I don't know how I got there. There wasn't a tunnel of white light. There wasn't an awareness of I'm getting somewhere. There was just, I'm here. And what I remember is that I call it the void. And the void is basically pitch black. And the pitch black, it's very dark and it's not scary. It's the opposite of anything scary. And it is so love-filled. That would probably be the word closest to describe it. And in that love-filled space, I remember a few things. I remember that I was like an amoeba form, I guess. I remember seeing myself as if I were God, but I wasn't really noticing that there was a difference of me versus God, we'll call it. And I remember that I was in this space and it was almost a mathematical space. I call it sacred geometry. And it looked very much like a pyramid. So it looked like this, but I was here. So I was like right inside here. But then this part was wider. So it looked like a tent more. So if this, instead of being a point, this was more like that. Okay? And I remember looking down towards that area and thinking, well, what's over there? And I remember getting the feeling I'm not allowed to go there. Like if I go there, that's kind of like that's a doorway to somewhere else that I'm not allowed to do right now. And the main thing that I remember in this space of where, when I describe it, it sounds so scary, because most people, they want to think of heaven, of this beautiful space. And I have to say, I don't feel like it was heaven. I feel like it was it felt like a parallel universe, just another space, another dimension. That's what it felt like. But it was the love that was what everyone describes as heaven. And I remember, it's so funny when I describe it with my consciousness in body, it's like I don't have any words. It's so limited. Anything of, I could even use the thesaurus and, use all these big words, and it still would never capture the amount of love that was in this space. But what I do remember is that I met God, and God wasn't separate from me. And how I describe God is that it's literally like the air. Like the air that you're breathing right now is God. Now imagine that air is love. It's kind of like being in a tub of water, and you're warmed by that water, but that water isn't necessarily going completely through you, but you feel that warmth. That's love. That's what I felt. So in this space, I remember kind of being face to face with God. Like I just remember this, it felt like the same thing, like almost more of like a ball of energy, I guess, but not separate from me, but like a ball of energy in a way, but barely. I don't even know how to explain that. So anyway, I remember I was just floating there. Like I have never, first of all, I am not, especially at a young age, I had a very hard time sitting still. I wasn't one of those people who, could nestle down with a book and, be still and be peaceful like that. I was very on the move. That was my peace. My peace came from being creative, from being, my stillness, my meditative moments was expression and energy and movement. So being basically a blob in nothingness and a void, and being in this darkness, doesn't sound like heaven to me at all. But it was so love-filled. And the fact that love was not separate, it was not being applied to me, it was not separate. It just was. It was kind of like, we don't think about the air of like us breathing, of that being separate. We just expect, oh, my next breath. You don't even think about it. That's what love was. And it was so heightened. There's no, like I said, there's no words to describe it. So I remember being there, and I remember the pyramid thing and looking farther and realizing I wasn't allowed to go there. And I was just okay, better than okay. I was fabulous. Like, I was so excited of where I was, yet nothing seemed to be happening. It's like we're so addicted to, something happening, therefore giving us an emotional response. And there was nothing, yet there was everything. It was just like, it felt like the beginning of creation, like just being in the moment. It was everything. So, in that, I remember all of a sudden being pulled back into my body. And I was not aware of time at this moment. I'll tell you about the time thing in a second. But all I remember is being pulled back into my body. And I remember thinking, we'll name Source, God, or Source, or Om, as some people call it. So I felt like Om, we'll call it, or Source. So I literally judged Source of saying, there's no way I'm going to fit back in that body. There's just no way. I was so convinced that God made a mistake, I'm not going back. There's no way I could fit. And I remember I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm really not going to fit in that body. And all of a sudden, it felt like a vacuum, like somebody had a vacuum inside my body, and they were vacuuming through my eyes and especially through the top of my head. And all of a sudden I go, and I really didn't think I was going to fit. I was like, there's no way. And shockingly, I did. And it was tight, though. I remember feeling very, very tight and limited. And then I remember I thought somebody opened my eyes and shone a flashlight in it during this time of coming back in, because it was so bright of a light. It was blinding. Like it was just like if you hold a flashlight right up to your eyes. So at this time, the transformational breath worker, she we'll name her G. Okay, so G goes and kind of freaks out because I'm on a table at this point, and I shoot up, sitting up, and I start just rambling as fast as I possibly could, telling her, about what just happened. And the reason I was saying it so incredibly fast was I could feel it draining. I could feel the feeling and the awareness and the truth drain from my mind. Like I felt like, how does this leaving? It just happened. How am I losing memory almost? It was such a surreal moment. And then I just kind of allowed that to happen and I felt like I understood why it was happening, basically because my literal brain and my consciousness could not hold that information, because it's not information that the brain can process, essentially. So So I shoot up, start telling her, blah, 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 blah. She's like, just lay back down. At this point, I didn't know this, but at this point, later on, she told me that she was holding up a tissue to my nose and trying to listen. She thought I was dead. And she got really, really scared because I was so incredibly quiet during the mid part of doing the transformational breath work, because after you do the certain breathing, then you basically are quiet. But she's like, I was eerily quiet. And she's like, I was putting my head up to your heart, and then I was just like trying to like feel breath, and she's like, I couldn't feel any breath. And so then I'm holding a tissue or something up to your nose. And she goes, the reason I came back, I think, is because she shook me, because she got really scared. So, which obviously coincided with God being like, get back there. So then so as soon as I came to, the interesting part that followed was that I had incredible guilt right when I came back. And it wasn't even like I had to think about it. It was almost like I felt embarrassed. And my embarrassment was that I didn't think of anyone. I didn't think of my family. I didn't think of it as me leaving. And now I understand, because this is what I do, is I work with people, who've transitioned beyond body, and, I'm in constant daily contact with that understanding. But at this time, I felt guilt of basically of leaving, and not even thinking like, oh, someone will miss me, or, oh, I feel bad that I left, or anything like that. So that really does speak pretty much to me volumes of, so when your loved one's passed, it's not, the more we can allow them to be in the space that they are, there's really no time. What I found. And the reason, it's like there's no, you don't miss if your spouse or somebody goes to the bathroom, do you be like, oh, I miss them? No, they're just going to the bathroom. That's exactly what it is. It's like literally in another room. There's no such thing as time. There's no, well, I am doing this and therefore they're doing this. There's no concept of that. The interesting part was also, I thought, like, when I had a gauge of how long it was, I'd say top 5 minutes, even though I didn't understand time when I was there. But I think it was over 20 minutes or something that I was in that space. I don't know. It was probably longer than that. But yeah, I just thought that was pretty interesting. I found the interesting part is for most NDEs, and especially when they're going to heaven, so I feel like this is more for a lot of people, was literal, like heaven for them. And I don't feel like mine was that. I feel like mine was just more a layover, maybe? Like a transitional space. That's probably what I would label it. There was no tunnel of light. I didn't meet any of my loved ones who've died previously. There was no, typicalness to it. So I didn't have any meeting of loved ones, or, pearly gates, or waiting for people, or people showing me anything. It was literally just me and God, and that was enough. That was everything. And I realized how I was everything. There was no separation. And like I said, love wasn't separated. It just was. And the word love times a trillion, if that, times a trillion. So it was just, it was, it was beautiful. And so many times we struggle with dying. I know I do, and I even work, in this field. But when I remember that truth, and I remember that space and that peace and that love that was and is me, and that is currently happening even in this moment, and you don't have to have an NDE to get to that or really to even understand that, because the understanding doesn't come through the brain. It literally comes, it just is you. And there's no weighing, the pros or cons. There's no duality. And in some ways, I understand and can appreciate duality here on Earth a lot more, and appreciate differences, even harsh ones, because it gets you to a higher purpose and a higher understanding and a higher awareness of what love really is. So in all of that, I feel like the message is to tap in to what you already are. And don't separate it. Don't separate it as if somebody, God, source, Om, whatever you want to call it, highest self, awareness. Don't separate it thinking that you have to achieve it or get to it, because it's already happening. It already is you. You're made up of all of it. Everything. This lamp, this screen, you, me, there's no difference. And I think the fascinating part for me was that I was all alone, yet I felt like I was everything. I mean, when we think, oh, heaven, we want like a whole bunch of people there and stuff like that. And the fact that I felt like it was just me, yet me was everything, was you, was everything. I realized of how not alone and how connected that we all are. It's like we're a tree. We're all the leaves. And just because that leaf falls down, it mulches into the ground, feeds the tree, becomes another leaf. We're the tree. We're not just the leaf. We're everything. A few things that I would like to add in this whole experience was that what I started doing relatively after that was really looking people in their eyes. I realized of how sacred it is, and how we can connect through our eyes. So it's really important, even if you're blind, that's okay, but looking in each other's eyes is our way to connect on a physical level. Also, the reason I never talked about this, and it took me a really long time, it wasn't because I was shy or anything like that. It was that my journey for me was very, very sacred. And I felt like anytime I even thought about it through words, I felt like it got diminished. I felt like talking about it, the words didn't do it justice, and it almost diminished its feeling. And I wanted to hold on to that for so long. So when I did talk to somebody about it probably around a year and a half later. I was working for a chiropractor when I was in high school. And I was doing all office stuff, and also advertisement and all that kind of stuff. And then I started really getting interested in massage therapy. And she hired this massage therapist, and I don't remember his name. And I remember I happened, it was like one of those very beautiful moments, orchestrated, cosmically orchestrated moments of where he and I just started talking. And I remember it was really late, and we were in the office, and I think I brought up something about near-death experience. And I was really kind of scared. It was good because he was older, so he wasn't going, it wasn't like I'm telling my high school friends this or something. And I told him a little bit about it, and it was literally we were finishing each other's words. And the interesting part, I've never met somebody who's had a similar experience yet. And but for him and I, it was the same thing of that pyramid going down, all black. We kind of called it the void, the womb. It's so beautiful. It's just incredibly love filled, and it was a beautiful moment of being able to share something so personal and vulnerable with somebody, and having them be able to really connect with a very similar story. So if that person's ever watching by any chance, definitely come in contact with me, because I'd love to rehear your story, because that was a very long time ago. Yeah, so I guess that pretty much sums up my near-death experience, one of them, the main one, I call it. And they don't have to happen through tragedy. I found it, it's more of like an awakening, awakening to the truth. And the truth is all the same, where it's like the saying, love wins. My realtor had a bumper sticker that said that, love wins. And I thought that is the best saying. So, signing off. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Thanks. Vanessa Wishstar, Intuitive Medium. Night, night.